Uh, Greetings to you all. Welcome to my humble presentation about technical interviews. I'm Aleksandar Nikolić. Um, so first, some rules, if it's okay with you. I'm not really good at presenting stuff like this, so I would really appreciate it if you could hold your questions until I ask you if you have any questions, because I'm as nervous as is, and yeah, it took them like 1.5 years to actually convince me to hold an presentation at all. So yeah. So who am I? I would consider myself an average Joe programmer. I'm not a genius. I don't have a PhD. I don't have a startup. I'm not a millionaire. So basically, I'm trying to show you through an average programmer's viewpoints how, at least my perception of technical interviews. I started working at 2018. I just did only C++ my whole career. I fell in love with it in the university, and since then I didn't try anything else. So yeah, I've been to a lot of interviews, and I've interviewed only once. So, but more on that later. A disclaimer. First of all, this is something. This presentation is based on my own experiences, and take everything with a grain of salt. Maybe you do not agree with my viewpoints, but I saw that something was not right with the whole selection process and how we actually decide who we are going to join our teams and work with us. So let's begin. What is a technical interview and what is its goal? A technical interview is a type of job interview used primarily in fields like software development, engineering, data science, and IT, where candidates are evaluated on their technical skills and problem-solving abilities. This is a question that I asked ChatGPT to generate me this answer. So basically, the point of that interview is to actually assess if somebody is capable of doing the job you want to hire him for. But we'll see if that's actually true. So yeah. How many interviews did I attend in my years on the work? A lot, about 20. So it is a lot for me. I switch jobs fairly frequently because in university they always taught us that if you don't have anything new to learn with the job, you should change it because you're young and you should gain as much experience as possible, at least in the beginning. How many were technical interviews, which were like coding sessions? Around 80%. So basically, I had maybe 3 interviews or 4, which weren't, or 2, which weren't technical, live coding sessions. So algorithmic tasks as such. So one question for you all. How many of you did a technical interview where the interview didn't have anything to do with the actual job? Like, raise hands. Really? Okay, I expected much more. But yeah, in my experience, the thing is that almost always the tasks which you were given, which I was given on the technical interview, didn't have anything to do with the job, in the sense that usually they were hard algorithmic, algorithmic tasks, and when you come to the job, it's usually refactoring, bug fixing, and stuff like that. So I think that I had only once to actually implement a linked list when it comes to data structures, and the second time I had to implement the data structure, it was a thread-safe queue. And I did it on my own accord because I saw that the existing implementation wasn't as performant as we needed it to be. So basically, I gave the task to myself. This meme actually explains my beef with technical interviews. Basically, you prepare like the interview like it was an exam. You learn algorithms, data structures. You learn dynamic programming. You get that on the interview. and then you go to the job and you never see it again. One of my friends is currently looking for a job, and he told me, yeah, it's a bummer that I have to learn all that stuff and know that I probably won't use it on the job. Just a disclaimer, I'm not against algorithmic tasks, but if you're not using it day in, day out, I don't see the point of learning all of that and then you go on a job and it's basically debugging and bug fixing. Any questions?
I want to make a remark. So the meme is like, it's not like the job is much simple. Yeah, the tasks are simple, but you don't have to do this algorithmic stuff. Normally, what I was always doing was some kind of integration, and it's always a systems you don't understand and need to figure out how it works. So it's completely different types of formulas. They're not easy.
Yes, precisely. Yeah. So basically, that's the basic point of the presentation. We are testing for the wrong things. But so now a brief history. So I wanted to ask, isn't the point of technical interviews see the applicants' problem-solving skills? It's the point of the interview is to actually assess if you're capable of doing the job. So it's the primary goals. The problem-solving skills are just a subset of the things that you have to be capable of doing. So yeah, okay, but the thing is how much time is actually allocated to actually doing these problems. That's the thing. Like, our job is not just crunching algorithms day in, day out. There's a lot of stuff which is usually not in the focus when it comes to interviewing. So basically, a brief history. Before, how in the beginning of our industry, how did the interviewing process look like? So basically, I send the CV. I come to the interviewer. The interviewer is Bob. Hello, my name is Aleksandar. Bob then says, "Oh, you know everything that we need for this position. Welcome on board." And I give them a first handshake, and that's all. And then came this guy around, Joel. Basically, he worked at Microsoft at the time, and he wrote the Guerrilla Guide to Interviewing. That was a guide for the interviewers, and he basically introduced the concept of lab boards, problem-solving interviews, and algorithmic stuff, and all those like puzzles where they assess how you think. And you should, if you have the time, I provide links in the description in the presentation. So basically, you can read up where he talks about it, and he actually says himself that he is at fault because he introduced this guide. And basically, Microsoft started it. Then Google came around. Google became really popular. Google became really wealthy, and every firm wanted to be like Google. So everybody started copying me. So usually, when you look at interviews, basically you can see that they are copying their homework from each other. If you're going around and actually interviewing a lot, it happened to me that basically I get the same task in two separate firms where I'm applying for a job. So usually my assumption is, okay, how are you going to test? Let's see what wouldn't is. And then they just tone it down a bit, and basically then you get all these lead code questions, algorithms, and puzzles, where they try to assess your problem-solving skills. But then it all boils down to a glorified IQ test. So I don't know if you were aware, but Google at one time started hiring top-notch talent in order to reserve them for themselves and prevent them to go to the competitors. Yeah, sorry. To go to the competitors. Basically, those developers live the Yugoslavian dream. You do nothing and you get paid. So, basically, if you don't have a project where you need those developers, how are you going to assess their capabilities and if they are top-notch developers? Basically, you get them a glorified IQ test. So yeah, maybe we should do what Google is doing. So a more modern approach of how I imagine people are generating interview questions is we GPT done on us, and basically you just ask it to generate you an interview C++ question. So this is a prompt that I wrote. I asked ChatGPT to generate me a task. So you get the algorithm task, implement a function that takes a stat string and turns the length of the longest substring without repeating characters. You get the function signature. It generates you test actually call correct code. And then you're, of course, I mean, we are all amazing, we're all developers, so we are going to ask it to actually generate the solution as well. And then you just cross-reference um, uh, what the candidate wrote and what the ChatGPT generated for you. This hasn't so because interviews should be more than just assessing if you're able to solve problems. It should assess if you're a good fit for the team and if the needs of the project, if you're meeting the needs of the project. So basically, stuff like that. This is not telling us anything. This is telling us that the candidate is capable of solving algorithmic tasks and nothing more. Our job is more than that. Also, interviews can be really strenuous. What do you mean by that? In my experience, once I had a technical interview which lasted for 4 hours. I had 3 guys interviewing me. The first guy, all were more or less live coding sessions. The first guy gave me an algorithmic task which was basically the first search implementation of the algorithm. We talked for about 2 hours. I had to write unit tests, and I was answering C++ questions. The second guy asked me like prefix and postfix arrays, and the third guy saw that I was really, really tired. I started losing my voice, like now. And basically, he asked me how would I construct the task hierarchy for Minesweeper. Fun fact, after that interview, I had another interview, technical interview, side by side, and I think that they felt sorry they didn't ask me to do any coding questions. That was one of those 3 instances where I didn't have to solve any tasks, any algorithmic tasks. So yeah, all the pressure is on the interviewee, on the candidates, and it's more stressful and complex than it needs to be, at least in my opinion. So I have a small story. Imagine that you finish university, you finish one of the top faculties in our country. It was, she finished, yeah. So you have a great GPA and you want to start earning money. So you send out a few CVs to a few companies, and one company calls you one day and they tell you, okay, we want you in for a technical interview. And you agree, yeah, great. You come to the technical interview expecting to actually have a job interview. And across of you sits a child. And that child doesn't really have a name tag. On his name tag, it just states student. So basically, it's a guy from a internship. And he starts asking you about C++. I was at tight. So basically what happened, all the engineers, C++ engineers, which worked at our company weren't in Serbia at the time. They were abroad working on a project. And the thing is that my manager came to me and told me, yeah, there's nobody who can actually ask for C++ stuff. So you're the only solution. And he told me, yeah, you have 1 or 2 hours to think up of some questions. So basically I remember that I made the questions harder and harder, but the thing is I didn't take into account that maybe she's going to fall off very soon. So when she started not knowing stuff, I just continued, and basically the whole interview was a big train wreck. I feel really sorry for her, and I regret that, but I didn't have the experience. Um, so the question is, what went wrong? Well, we didn't have a standardized interview. We didn't have a standardized way to assess someone's knowledge and capabilities and readiness for the job. So basically, sometimes I hear even from colleagues which were doing the interviewing, they said, "Yeah, I just found out that I'm going to interview someone for our project. I'll just think of something on the spot." That's not good because that means that you didn't really think about the needs of the project. So why is all this approach bad? The thing is, as I've said, the interview not really reflects the job. So basically, you're just assessing one thing, which is problem-solving skills, but you don't assess other stuff, which is also important, like maybe design patterns, software designs, think how testing, so unit testing, stuff like that. I mean, it can be, it may, or even debugging. It may seem that it's trivial, but the thing is, when you look at how many tasks usually a C++ code base, which is fairly old or large is, you rarely have the opportunity to actually implement an algorithm or a data structure. Also, the bad thing there's also a bad thing for the candidate. The candidate doesn't have a clue what he can expect from the job. So what capabilities he needs to actually do the job. The thing is, if you want to preserve a good programmer on your project, he should be satisfied with the work he does. There's a direct correlation with fulfillment at work and happiness generally in people, and especially when it comes to our job where you actually use your brain all day long. So one question: what do you think? What percentage of time is reserved for everything else? If we put the time aside for actually solving, algorithmic tasks, how much time is reserved for all other questions that you may have for the candidate, or maybe the candidate has for you? It's two-way street. Like the candidate also has to assess if he's satisfied with the project, or if is he actually interested in the project that you are trying to hire him for. Sorry. So in my experience, only 15, okay, here see, only 15 minutes is reserved for everything else. 45 minutes usually goes to the actual coding, unit testing, and stuff like that. Also, some big companies arrange multiple rounds of interviews. So one round is for algorithmic tasks, one round is for multi-threading, one round for software design. But usually smaller companies, medium-sized companies do not really have the leverage or the time or the resources to do stuff like that. So arrange free or different interviews where you're going to assess the in-depth technical knowledge of the candidate, where he can basically say, okay, I'm done with this at any point, and then you lost a lot of resources on that. Also, not everyone is a 10x program. Usually, jobs do not require a 10x program. They require a programmer who has enough experience with the problems you're facing day in, day out. Also, basically, not every job needs a 10x programmer. Okay, does anybody have any questions or remarks currently? Okay, sorry if I'm boring you. So yeah. Okay, let's look at an example of a really, really hard interview question. So I was talking to my one of the guys from upper management, and we were talking about C++ and how enthusiastic we are, and we love the language. And basically, he gave to the engineers on my team this task, and he said, yeah, we gave this in one of his former employees. He gave this as an interview question to around 200 candidates, and only 1% was able to solve it. So I think that I don't understand why didn't they change the interview question. And the solution is something really particular. So what does anybody have at least a faintest idea what this is and what is required here?
you're confused why the cause is also
Basically, you have to make the code work. It has to compile and then it has to actually have it print A and print B. Want some more help? I'll just say std function.
you always say
Std function, std function.
why we need to guess what the framework is.
Basically, you just get this and you have to solve it.
Well, in the first call, there's two semicolons.
Doesn't matter. I miskept it. So sorry, it was a screenshot. Also, what call is like indented edition. But yeah, I saw that like just before I click here. Basically, here the point is to implement std function. So func, which is this here, is supposed to be something like std function. And then you have to understand that std function is implemented with type erasure, the design pattern that it was popularized by. I know it from Klaus Edelberger's book, C++ Software Design. And basically, this is the solution. Yeah. So two guys were able to solve this. In my team, I was able to solve it, and another guy who didn't know what type erasure was. So basically, he reverse engineered everything. He actually pulled it out of his CAD, and man, I wouldn't be able to solve this if I didn't know about the design pattern. So yeah, it's really a niche thing. Like I do not know that anybody uses day in day out to projects type erasure, and that they construct the whole design hierarchy based on that. I'm just saying, I mean not that mind. But so one question: is there a better way? Okay.
So we define fine potter.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, bấm là boy, đó là in Brazilian mong boy.
Okay, no matters. So basically, you have to implement it live. This was the answer that they searched for. Also, this is also a bad thing when it comes to interviews. Usually, the interviewers are searching for a specific answer, and if you're not able to provide it, then yeah, you are a bad candidate. That doesn't have to be.
It's really taxable company. It's not like I was in militaries, and my question was like find the second largest element of an array. It's not that difficult, and like ham people cannot do that.
Okay, then you read them out in the first 10 minutes, and after that you ask something else. But as I said, problem solving skills is only one aspect of our job, and maybe it's not the most important thing on our job. So, is there a better way? Basically, when we want to create interview questions, it depends from project to project. So basically, some projects are maintain an ancient code base, or try to modernize it, or maybe your code base it has poor unit test coverage. So basically, you need a guy who actually understands how to write good unit tests. It's an underrated skill, because not everything is unit testable. Then you have to refactor the code to be unit testable, to write unit tests which actually make sense. So these are maybe the skills which are more important than problem-solving algorithmic tasks. Basically, we need to analyze the project we are working on, talk with senior developers and team leads, because usually they know where the project is heading. Are we going to try to modernize it to make it more safe? They usually know what kind of tasks are awaiting us for the next 2 years. Basically, give on the interview something which you did in a task. So basically, you just remove all the proprietary names, give it like a function, and tell them, okay, refactor this, or make it unit testable, or modernize it. Sorry. So and also think about all the root causes of your issues. So if you do not have enough unit tests and you are not writing new unit tests when you introduce new functions, think, why is that? Maybe your design is bad. Maybe also debugging and stuff like that, it's more important usually because C++ has a lot of code and a lot of old code. So all of that has to be managed at some point. And yeah, basically we should test for stuff like that. One of my friends sent me this as an example, which he got on an interview, and basically they told him, modernize it, refactor it, do what you need to do to make this code work and sustainable and modern. And basically we have a reverse function which tries to return an array whose elements are in repo sorted in reverse. Okay, so sorry, I phrased that badly. We have function func, which tries to allocate to arrays. It populates the first array with random numbers. Then we can make a copy of the first array. Then we reverse the second array, and then we just print those two arrays. And the solution that my friend came up with is this. It's basically 3 lines of code, and in C++, I think 20 with ranges and.
But 3 very specialized approaches.
You can do it like this. And basically all the logic is boiled down into it. It's not his fault that he knows modern C++. Once I had an interview question where they asked me to like print a string in reverse, and basically I just did a stud copy to see out in reverse order. And the guy who interviewed me was like positive he didn't recognize what I did there. So because he probably wanted me to do the old-fashioned way with, I don't know, rooks or whatever you use to do it. Another example is this. And yeah, this is not an error. I did not copy this slider by mistake. The thing is, this could be a good interview question for a really specialized thing which you have in your code base. So if you're using a lot of type erasure, and it's like fundamental for your design structure, it's okay to ask this, but not like, okay, this is the code, make it happen. But you can start with, okay, the point of this is to actually implement stud function. And then you start communicating with the candidate and actually try to assess if he understands it, or does he actually know about type erasure. And then through the conversation, even if he is not capable of writing the solution by himself, if he has good design fundamentals, he should understand. And basically, you communicate. We all virtual people. So we are not idols where you get the task and you start pounding on it until it's finished. You usually, if you have a blocker, you go and ask your colleague for his opinion, and you try together to come to a conclusion. So basically, this could be a good interview question, but you have to talk to your candidates. I mean, we are all aware that type erasure is something really niche. We know that the function uses it, but I don't know if... So how many of you did actually implement it in their code base? Ever? 1, 2. But I did. I did it out of fun, but I didn't do it on my work because I will get flagged, my PR would get flagged. So yeah, this is nothing new. So we all, I think, in more or less experienced stuff like that, and we are more or less aware of stuff like that. I had a situation where my colleague, a new colleague, he passed the interview. He had like 30 years of experience, and when he started pushing PRs, we saw printfs everywhere. By the way, we are using C++MT. He didn't even bother to understand how we are logging stuff. And yeah, when you talk to him about some newer stuff, newer constructs, since it is a direction where our project we wanted to go, he didn't know about that. And I think that stuff should be filtered out before he works for almost a year before he got fired. So, yeah. Uh, does anybody have questions? Anything? Okay, cool. Also, does interview coder, does anybody know what this is?
Cipinto Poreco. Correct, says that.
Correct. A guy, I think, from Stanford, I'm not sure. Basically, he got kicked out from the university because he implemented this. And how it works is basically it's an overlay over your screen. So when you share it, the interviewers are not aware that you're cheating. Also, the solutions are hovering and are transparent, and they're hovering in that way that it's not suspicious. Your eye movement is not suspicious. So you're actually always looking at the right side of the monitor when you actually implement the thing they ask you to do. He got like jobs at Amazon, so offers from Amazon, Google, Facebook, all the big guys. And yeah, one thing which we are all aware is currently, at least at the moment, AI is not able to do my job. But AI is perfectly capable of solving the usually oligarchy which is dividing us and the job where we want to work. So basically, that's a good indicator that our current strategy of creating interviews is not really productive. It's not really giving us what we need. So yeah, if you're interested, I will recommend using it. But it's interesting to see that something like this exists. Also, Klaus Siebelberger gave a lecture, a keynote for the using StatCPP convention. And basically, one sentence. So basically, the real problem of C++ is the name of the presentation of the lecture, and one sentence from the synopsis of the presentation really struck a nerve with me. It's although initially it may sound like a legacy problem, we'll come to realize that C++ has a people problem. So basically, he said that it's not that C++ is unsafe, it's that the developers are not aware of all the features, safe features, and of modern C++. So all the features which are making C++ safe. So yeah, since I couldn't agree more. Like, we have a people problem, and the importance of interviews is that we are weeding out the people who are not able to satisfy the needs of the project. So basically, if it's a people problem, we should have a people solution for it. Also, the interview should be the first kernel, not the only one. So I'm not aware, I don't know if you know, but basically we all have probation periods in our contracts when we start work. And in that period, it should be assessed if you're a good fit for the team. So, and also it is also it's where you as a candidate assess if you like the job, if you want to continue working on it. So everybody should start using that feature, because in my humble opinion, interviews are not enough. As I've said, it is just a first hurdle where you just see if you are there, and then you actually see how that person works and if he is a good fit for your team. And also, after the probation period, you should have a review cycle with him, so you talk about all the problems he solved or didn't solve. So yeah. Also, for the end, if you think that this is a problem, so if you agree with me, and if you think that something has to change, we are the ones who are supposed to initialize that change. So we should start a conversation without managers. We should talk with them about how to actually get the best talent and the best fitting talent for our projects. Because in the long run, if we invest more time in actually selecting people for the job, then the overall product is going to be more lucrative. We are going to do stuff faster, better. We're going to be the cutting edge. So, yeah. Does anybody have any questions?
I have a question. So, it's usual that on some interviews, the tactics was to check a way of thinking. So, two of my interviews was I was set to say what I am thinking if I have troubles with solving some task, and I should explain what issues I am thinking right now, and so the way of thinking. So they don't try to check the only right or wrong the solution is, but rather how people's how
Of course. Well, that's also depends on from interviewer to interview. Like it depends who's actually asking you questions. But the thing is, yeah, that's great, but that's only one aspect of our job. So, to be honest, in my experience, usually, especially C++ tasks are revolving around refactoring and debugging. So, why it's nice it's nice that they want to see how you think, but are we actually using that part of the brain when we actually do our job day in day out? It's more like
It is the same part.
I not sure. I was the relation ability. Like you
High school people did the interviews. Normally they would also add other
Also, a lot more important than I would be real sad in inclusion of this part in the official sites for some people to debug the entries. That's the source of that's solid.
So I had a component today. We see what I did for work. I have a component about 10 files, about 10,000 lines of code, and there are some unit tests. And we need to write one unit test that needs to trigger a certain line in the code. And I was doing that all day. I couldn't do it. That's like an interview question that's not about algorithms, about the things you do every day. But if you're not in a really good focus is not really good that day, you cannot.
Yes, that's the thing. Well, that's why I was saying maybe the probation period is more important, because the interview is just a point of time where they check how well you're prepared and how well you are mentally prepared to show your knowledge. Because everybody becomes nervous. There's a lot of pressure. Like I know the second BMW is not gonna buy itself. So basically you want to get to ace the job and actually make ends meet and start working. Like you everything depends on 1 hour, actually 45 minutes, and
If you're lucky.
if you're lucky, like if you're able to actually solve it, or if it's even shorter, then that's bad because they book out the interview fairly soon and you don't have to wait.
So in my experience, I noticed that most interviewers, they're trying to relax that schedule. They're not trying to make like you feel bad about yourself.
No. They don't need to. You feel. I mean, it is. I'm talking about my own experience. I feel bad now about myself on my own. So it's really. I always pictured it like an exam, which is needlessly stressful. Like basically, usually in the job, you're going to. What I will also, if I will interview tomorrow, I hope I'm currently talking to my managers to actually change our interview process. And basically what I would ask, okay, here's a function which is in our code base, refactor it. So it's that's basic because that's one of the things that we want to change in our code base. So it is practical. You do it day in, day out. And in my opinion, it makes sense because also if you're going to implement an algorithm, okay, it's an understanding, but usually you have references and literature which you can reference. So yeah, you know that you can solve something with that problem, and then you try to find and source the best solution that you can. So yeah, it's everything is fairly it depends. So it depends on the project, depends on what you want from the project and what you expect from the candidate. So yeah.
I have like we had a guy who came to work and he was doing probation period for 3 months, and then one day he will come to work and was like, okay, and I called him today, is everything alright? And he said, well, the probation period expired yesterday and I didn't want to come. And I was like, well, that's okay, but you could have said that. So my unit assess motivation also upon verkrijgen nog eens.
Yeah. Basically, yeah. So motivation is, that's what I said. Like that's what I meant. Sorry, that's what I meant with the interviewee. So the candidate usually with that those kind of questions doesn't know what he can expect from the project, and what kind of code he can expect.
But it's always integration, at least in my experience. Yeah, they were always promising the new exciting stuff. It was always like, take this, these components with 20,000 lines and figure out how to make spins. Yeah, I mean, for me at least, every job has been like that, except for my first part.
If you have 10,000 lines of code in one file, one of the questions should be, how long do you need to cry? So how long does it take for you to stop crying? That should be mandatory because, man, it's a nightmare. But it is what it is. It's simple.
Not silly, you don't have to look for files.
So yeah, that would be all.